everybody. Welcome to week 4 of our herbology class. This week we're going to be talking about courage, love, and luck plants. So let me just take a second to give you a little bit of an update. We're slowly catching up with the weeks that we've been behind. And one thing I wanted to tell you is that from here on out, these classes will be a lot less material heavy. Now that we've covered pretty much all of the basics about plant care, how to use your plants, the difference between herbs and spices, which ones are poisonous, we've covered a lot of material up to this point in this semester. So with that being said, at this point and moving forward, we're really just going to be talking about which plants can be used for which magical properties. Now, being that we've already talked about how to care for your plants and so on, I won't need to explain that for each individual plant. Basically, at this point, we are just going to be identifying what those plants look like and what properties they work for. So typically, whenever you're looking at a list of the magical properties of a plant, how it is written is this is the plant and these are the properties for which it works for. Now, there are a lot of resources where you can find it written that way. For our class, what I want to do instead is give you a magical property and tell you which plants work for that property. So we're going to flip that. I just feel like, for me, it is easier for me to say, I know what kind of spell work I need to do. I need a spell that's going to work for courage or love or luck or whatever the case may be. So I want to know what plants work for that. What works best for me and what I think might ultimately work really well for you in doing spell work is figuring out which plants you can use for a magical property, as opposed to what magical properties you can use that plant for. I hope that makes sense. I'm not sure that it does. I know what I'm trying to say, but vocalizing it is a little bit more difficult than I thought. So just to reiterate quickly, what I'm going to do is to teach you each magical property and which plants work for that. So over the next few weeks, you're probably going to see repeated plants. We'll probably bring them up multiple times. And that's okay. I just want to make sure that if you need a quick reference of what plants can I use for this courage spell that I'm trying to do, you can quickly come here, scroll through the video, and find those slides. So first we're going to talk about courage plants, herbs, and spices. So the first one that I wanted to discuss is pepper. And this is just black pepper, what you normally have at home. This plant is pretty difficult to grow. It doesn't grow well in many climates and only well in certain climates. So with that being said, this is one that's probably best just to purchase. And I know that as witches, we want to be able to grow as many things as we can on our own and harvest them on our own. Like, we obviously want to start from scratch if we possibly can. Some of these just aren't going to be easy to do that way. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's just that it's not easy to do. And in learning a lot about herbology and how to use your herbs and spices, I think that most people aren't going to have the knowledge and capability, or maybe even the climate in which they could grow some of these. So I'll be clear about which ones you can and cannot grow. This is one that's going to be very difficult to grow, especially in North America. It just requires a certain climate. Again, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's difficult, especially for like beginner plant parents. So yeah, this one might be best if you do purchase it. With that being said, since it is difficult to grow, and we definitely want to try to get it as early as we can in the growth process of this plant so that we can infuse it with magical properties, one thing you can do is to choose to buy it in the peppercorn form. Once you do this, you can grind it yourself. So that gives you a little bit of time to work with this spice itself and infuse those magical properties into it. Okay, and guys, I know I say this every single class, but I just want to say it again in case someone doesn't know. I do have a toddler. Sometimes it gets loud. If you hear some background noise, it's her. She's fine. She's just 2. She's playing. She's loud. So I apologize in advance if that's distracting to anyone. The next one for courage is horseradish. This is a hard word for me to say. There's a lot of different ways that horseradish can be used. It can be used as an herb or a spice. And if you remember from an earlier lesson, there's different parts of the plant that you get those from. So you'll have to reference your spell before you know which part of this plant to use. Next is chives. Now here's the thing about chives. This is very easily confused with green onions or scallions. They are not the same thing, okay? One thing to also note about chives is in our last class, we were talking about how some plants need to be harvested at a certain time. This is one of those that's best harvested before their flowers bloom to get the full potency of its magical properties. Okay, next is nettle. And nettle is commonly used for tea. You can use it for other purposes as well, but it's most commonly found in tea. Nettle is fairly easy to grow. You could grow that at home, and you would harvest it the way that we discussed in our last video. A fairly easy herb or spice to work with. Okay, next is basil. Basil is extremely easy to grow at home. It is a windowsill plant, very easy to work with, very common for indoor plants, and also very easy to dry and grind yourself. Okay, now let's talk about some love herbs and spices. So the first one is cinnamon, and all of us have this in our home, I would just about bet. One thing to note about cinnamon is it also is one that is not easily grown outside of certain climates. So this is best to purchase at the store. And just like pepper or peppercorn, you can buy cinnamon in the stick form and grind it yourself just to have more time to work with that spice. Okay, next for our love spices is coriander. If you remember from our very first week of classes, I believe, we talked about how some plants can function as herbs and as spices, and coriander is one of those. So coriander actually comes from the seeds of the cilantro plant. And while this one can be harvested, cilantro is easily grown at home, by the way. While you can harvest your own coriander seeds, it isn't entirely simple. And one thing we didn't discuss in this class, which I wish I had made time for, was how to particularly harvest the seeds of a plant. So this might be something that we discuss in a future class, in a future semester. So for the time being, while it is easy to grow, this might just be something that you should purchase if you're not familiar with the process. Okay, next for love, we're going to talk about vanilla. And we all love vanilla. That's absolutely a favorite. Everyone loves it. Vanilla is another one that's not easily grown in this climate. And of course, I'm speaking for the U.S., by the way. For those outside of it, you'll have to check and see what's easily grown in your area. But for those in the U.S., it's not easily grown. It is really better grown in different climates. Again, not that it's impossible to grow, but it is very difficult to grow. So I would again suggest that this is something that you do purchase at the store. And again, you can buy vanilla in the whole bean form so that you're able to grind it and work with it yourself. You can also make liquid vanilla at home. If anyone is interested in how to do that, just let me know. I do have a recipe for how to make your own vanilla extract, pure vanilla extract. It takes a while, but if you're interested in doing that, let me know and I can get that for you. Okay, next is sorrel. Not much to say about this one. It's very easy to grow, it's easy to harvest, and it's easy to dry yourself. Very easy one to work with. Okay, let's transition to talking about our luck herbs and spices. The first one is comfrey. And one thing I want you to note about comfrey is it is actually considered unsafe for consumption. You know, we've talked about our poisonous plants. This is one that would have a toxicity level. While it's not deadly to consume, it can cause some liver damage. So it actually is banned in the U.S. for consumption, and the external use of it comes with a warning. So most of the time, if you're going to be using comfrey, it's not going to be for any spell work that would be ingested or topically applied. This is a herb or spice that's going to be better carried. Okay, next for luck is heather. And heather is a beautiful plant. It's very easy to grow at home. Another one that is just easy to work with. This one is actually typically used in its flower form. So very easy to work with, great for spell work. Next for luck is nutmeg. Again, nutmeg, not one that's easily grown or harvested at home. I definitely suggest that you purchase this one. It's just not good for our climate. With that being said, just a reminder, if you look back to our poisonous plants class, this is one of those that is considered to be poisonous when consumed in large amounts. So you want to take care to not consume nutmeg in large amounts. Okay, next is allspice. Allspice can be grown, not very easily, and it's not entirely easy to harvest. So I'm going to go ahead and suggest that allspice be another one that you purchase. Okay, this week, we're not going to have any focus questions. For these next classes where we're discussing these particular herbs and spices that have magical properties associated with them, we're probably not going to have focus questions. There's not much I could ask you about that. What I would like for you to do, however, is to try to familiarize yourself with the appearance of these herbs and spices. And also, which ones are easily grown, not easily grown, which ones should be purchased as opposed to harvested yourself. Okay, guys, so that actually is all we're going to have for this class. One thing I want to do, like we always do at the end of a class, is discuss what you can expect in the coming weeks. So unfortunately, as I did with our last week's assignment, we are still playing catch up. So we still got a lot to work on. So I really don't know exactly where we're going to be going next. I'm working on our next week's class. However, I'm trying to get a lot done in a short amount of time. So just bear with me as you have continued to do. I really appreciate that. One thing you can expect, as I said in the last class, I will be releasing quizzes regarding information that we are able to cover in the previous week. And I will also try to get back on track with holding our Saturday sessions. I know that doesn't really give you all a lot of clarity. And again, I apologize for that. As I'm playing catch up here, it's just kind of a struggle for me to give a clear picture of what the following week might look like. So for right now, just try to stay up with any pings I'm doing, any updates I'm giving. I'll make sure to keep you all updated on how things are progressing so far as getting caught back up. I'm trying to get us back on track for these last couple weeks of class so that we can finish up really solid. So thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you all in the next class.